Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Sasquatch Watch Radio with your hosts, Billy Willard and the Blog Squatcher. Strap in, hold on tight, get ready, because it is about to go down.
Alrighty, hello everyone. Great to see everyone here tonight. Another edition, November 17th, 2008 edition of Sasquatch Watch Radio. We will have a wonderful guest with us tonight. We've brought Mr. Ron Schaffner on the air with us tonight. Before we get to Ron and start asking him some questions, because I'm really interested to hear about how he got into this, because I don't think I've ever heard his story. Mr. D.B. Donlin, how are you doing this evening?
Billy, I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I am doing just fine. I'm going to talk a little bit about this past weekend, but I think before I get into that, I think I'd like to find out what you have found out in the news here lately.
Well, I did find a couple of things real quick for the news. Let me go through these as fast as possible here so we can get to your story, too. You might remember that I was talking about, many shows ago, about a place in Canada that has a newspaper called Houston Today, but this is in Canada, not in Houston, Texas. And they were running a series on some Sasquatch sightings up in I think this is the far western part of Canada. I really couldn't tell you where the city of Houston is in Canada, but it's somewhere in the west. Well, there has been possibly 3 more Sasquatch sightings up in that same area. The guy who brought us all the other sightings, his name is Brian Vike, and he's the director of the HBCC UFO research up there. He also collects Sasquatch sightings. He has a lead on 3 more sightings which happened in September. So if you add those to the 3 that happened over the summer, that's a total of 6 in that same little area, which I think that's really interesting that they would have so many. But he's cautioning that he hasn't been able to get to. He's getting these from secondhand, so he hasn't gotten to the actual witnesses yet. But they've printed it up in the paper and talked about it. Now, something that just caught my eye down at the bottom of this, Vike said that the area has always had some connection to the paranormal, and I'm now reading from the Houston Chronicle article here. He said, in 2002 and 2003, this area was dubbed the UFO capital of the world. There was just so much activity between here and Burns Lake. Now it seems to be Sasquatches. And you see something like that quite often about, we were talking a couple of shows ago about how a lot of the places where we investigate, there's some connection with a Civil War battlefield, or one was right next to what people call an Indian burial ground. You find these connections to these places where they have other things that have gone on there. Just something that I like to keep my finger on. Not that I'm going to say I know what that means, but
right.
It jumps out at me, so I say it.
Right.
What's that make you think?
Well, I mean, you have to think. I mean, you're like, well, it's interesting, but as a lot of that though, there's so many areas that have other paranormal quote unquote things going on. So it's kind of hard to pinpoint.
That could be all there is to it.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
It could be that just about anywhere you could talk about, somebody say, well, a couple of years ago, something paranormal happened, because it just pretty much happens everywhere.
Right.
That's a good point. Well, the other one we'll just go over really quickly is that there are a couple of Bigfoot sightings in Great Britain that have come to my attention here. You think Great Britain? No, there couldn't be any Bigfoot in Great Britain. But yeah, people see them in Great Britain. There's a guy by the name of Nick Redfern that we're probably going to try to get on the show pretty soon to tell us a little bit about Bigfoot sightings in Great Britain. But there are two that have just recently happened there. The funny thing about this last one was she describes it as 4 feet tall with really big feet and animal-looking eyes. And she's sure that she saw it, But in Great Britain?
Right.
So what does it make you think there?
Huh. That's odd. I agree with you. I mean, Great Britain, you just wouldn't, I don't know. It's just not a place that you would expect to see something like that.
Yeah, I mean, how can they be hiding in Great Britain?
I don't know.
So, well, Nick Redfern's theory is that they aren't real creatures, that they're paranormal. So when we get him on, we'll get him to explain that to us, and then I guess we'll argue with him a little bit to see if we can come to some terms there. Right. Well, that's all I've got for us today, and both of them strangely have a little of the paranormal or the UFO tint about them. Right. They both just have to come across the digital transom today.
Right. Well, we appreciate it, DB, as always. You always find the news that actually that wasn't even one that I had seen. So I'm glad you brought it up because I didn't know anything about them. So thank you.
I try. Well, really quick now, you got to tell us about what you just did this weekend.
Well, this weekend went out with a small group of folks, and we had a visit to Salt Fork State Park up in Ohio. Mr. Don Keating and a few other close associate members of the PBS, Eric Altman, several others. Don't want to leave people out, but I'm not going to list them all. And we had a good time. It was rainy. It was cold. And some points it was snowy. Friday night was pretty miserable. After about 10 o'clock, it started raining. So we had to pull all of our electronic equipment in. We couldn't do any more recording. Don Keating, I'm sure, is going to talk about some things on his show coming up on Thursday night, which he's on the Now Live network on his show. And I'm getting an echo. Are you getting an echo, DB?
I'm not. No, my connection's still fine. It does sound like I'm hearing some bleed over for somebody's phone, but that's all I'm catching.
Okay, all right. Anyway, to make a long story short, Friday night, as Don Keating will probably talk about on his Thursday show, and I'm not going to go into it, Don did spot something on his night scope. Really didn't talk to him too much about it other than he saw something moving. And this was after we had went in and set up in the woods. I did hear, some noises. Sounded like something had stepped on a log and crushed it. Some really loud noises Friday night. Possibly some bipedal footsteps, but I can't be 100% sure. That's what I was hearing. Wasn't real eventful. I mean, there was some things, but wasn't really eventful. Now, Saturday night was a different story. Saturday night, we had set up in an area where it was myself, Eric Altman, Tom Lancaster, and we had, I'm drawing a blank for the fourth fellow, and I apologize. He may be listening to the show, and I apologize. But we were all out there, pretty much the same thing. Tom had his parabolic mic system set up. We were listening. We did have a few things happen. We saw what we thought was possible eye shine. I do have about 5 minutes worth of video of what may be eye shine. I'm not sure. It was just one, looked like one beam of light, so I don't know if it was something standing behind a tree and peering around a tree. I just don't know. It was kind of a white, bluish in color. Later on that night in the same general area, there was some red eye shine seen by Tom. So I don't know. I've got about 5 minutes of video of the white, bluish colored, whatever it was. I did try to make a move towards it, but it moved and went away. So it appeared to be blinking every now and then. It appeared back and forth, like kind of behind the tree, and then it would come back. So whatever it was, Eric also had a little bit of a scare. He had went to a certain area to do some business, and
answer the call of nature.
That's right. Answer the call of nature. It happens to us all, to the best of us. And we heard him over there. All of a sudden, we hear this, dunk, 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 and then some profanities came out, and he kind of run back towards the group. And what happened was we assumed something had thrown this. They call them monkey balls, and they look like oversized walnuts, about the size of a softball. And he saw it apparently when it hit, and he assumed that it came out of the brush, and he heard it hit limbs, so that's the reason we were assuming that it did come out of the brush, and that was a little bit of an adrenaline rush, I guess you could say, and that was about it. Again, nothing hardcore evidence, obviously, as always, but again, it was fun had by all. Everybody had a good time, enjoyed talking to everyone, and just getting out there and having a good time, even though it was wet and miserable and cold. Still had a good time. So that's about it. So we will now get Mr. Ron Schaffner on the line and bring him on. And Ron, how are you doing tonight? I understand that you may be suffering from a little bit of a cold. Are you there, Ron? Uh-oh, did we lose Ron?
Well, I can't tell you, but have you got him muted accidentally, maybe?
No, I'm showing him on the air. Are you there, Ron?
Can you hear me now?
There he is. I hear him. That's the famous Verizon saying. Can you hear me now?
Right.
I can't believe Eric Altman was cursing.
Well, he just used one of those real quick, short 4-letter words. So.
I'm surprised. More shocked.
So how are you doing tonight, Ron?
Oh, not too bad. How you guys doing?
Doing fine.
Great.
So we got you on the show. I know you've done other shows. I think DB had already done some research and found that you had done, what did you say, about 6 other interviews that you found, right, DB?
Well,
did I lose my connection?
No, I think I lost DB.
Oh, okay. I was going to say I've been on Keating's show a couple of times. I think I was on Eric's show when he had it on.
Okay. Good deal. Good deal. I'll tell you what, Ron, go ahead, and I'm sure we've got some folks here that may not have heard any of your interviews. We may have some new folks here. I mean, I've never heard about it. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I kind of got involved in this. Well, I've always been interested in UFOs and when I was in high school. And I remember the 1967 Patterson film, which we made the True magazines or something. My foster parents used to always get the Argosies and True magazines to come in, so me and my brother was able to keep up on all that. But about 1970, I got involved with public broadcasting and was volunteering for a public radio station here, and I used to do a real early morning rock and roll and blues show. Mm-hmm. And one of the instructors we had put us on a project to try to learn how to do broadcast journalism, how to do interviews and stuff. And one of my partners there had a book from John Keel called Strange Creatures from Time and Space, and I got to reading this thing, and I'm thinking, wow, this is pretty cool stuff. And that's what I did my broadcasting thing on, was on UFOs. I basically was a UFO investigator. That really got into it, joined some of the big groups, and really got involved with that. And I started hearing about reports of large hairy hominids and stuff like that, and I kind of got interested in that too. And I was kind of like the John Keel way of thinking. I thought it was all paranormal, it was all related. And a lot of the researchers from my time back then also believed that, like Lauren Coleman and Jerome Clark. And over the years, I just kind of got into the Bigfoot thing a little bit more than the UFOs. And then after, researching it a little bit and the investigations I did in the 70s and 80s, I realized that there probably really wasn't a connection, that if Bigfoot exists, it was probably some unknown species of primate, and that was a living biological creature rather than some paranormal thing.
Right.
And the rest is history. I, kind of got involved in the 70s, 80s, and the great 77 flap, as I call it, and did a lot of investigations back at that time, some cases around here. About 1980, when kind of got drawn into a hoax with the Ray Wallace video and an alien body hoax, my thinking kind of got a little bit more skeptical. I started thinking, wow, people are pulling this stuff over on other people, that possibly some of the other stuff that we've heard might be misinterpretations or hoaxes or, things along that line. So I started doing some following up on some of the cases that were in printed material and realized, well, maybe this was something else. So I guess you could say I have become a little bit more skeptical of the Bigfoot phenomena as of this date. However, I don't discard the possibility that this creature exists. I would never, nothing's impossible. So, there's always a possibility. It's just that, and being involved with the BFRO for a number of years and seeing some of the reports that were coming on the database that I questioned, that I felt that shouldn't be on the database, because I feel like if you have a couple of questionable reports on some kind of database, it just taints the whole database.
Right.
And if something's a hoax, I think that whoever the investigator is should be very happy that they figured it out, because that's what investigation's all about, is trying to solve some kind of a mystery. Right. In addition, there's a lot of reports that are, pure misinterpretation of a known animal, and I don't think they have nowhere being on that database unless you want to include a separate database saying, questionable cases and that kind of thing.
Right.
So you could say my line of thinking has changed over the years.
No, I mean, I agree with you, Ron. I mean, it's, if you have some kind of an encounter that can be explained by, a bear or something that you can't really prove otherwise, then yeah, I think it should be put on a separate section. You certainly don't want to call it a Class A or a Class B or Class C. I mean, you definitely have to differentiate a sighting that could very well be something else.
Yeah, I never was into the Class B thing. I just thought that a lot of that was, and I don't mean to insult anybody, but I think a lot of it's just nonsense. It has no business being on there.
Right.
It's like Renee DeHenen always said, if you take out the crap, the good cases will stand out, and I still hold to that theory.
All right. I think we got that echo again.
It's my speakerphone.
What was that?
It's probably the speakerphone I'm on.
Okay. Let me, we got some callers hanging on the line here, Ron, so we're going to get them on. Before I get them on, I just want to, if anybody can hear it over the echo, call-in number if you want to ask Ron a question is 347-237-5070. Again, it's 347-237-5070. We're going to get this first caller on the line. I believe we have Mr. Bill Green.
How you doing, Billy and DB and Ron?
Doing good, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's kind of cold in Connecticut right now, a little windy. Winter is coming.
Yep,
but,
it's coming.
I was on Cryptomundo today, and I guess one of the producers of Boggy Creek passed away recently.
Oh, really?
Or something. Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah. But, hey, Ron, are you currently investigating any new cryptozoology animal sightings in Ohio or lately?
You there, Ron?
I hate this phone. with. No, Billy, we haven't. There was a report that I got from a friend of mine out in Adams County who had reported that somebody that worked at the Peebles Marietta jet propulsion place out there had seen something. But on further investigation and with my contact talking to the witness, he thinks he saw a bear. That's about the only thing that I really had investigated. Problem is with me is I live in Cincinnati and Eastern Side, and for me to get to any area that would have any activity is probably a 2-hour drive. It's not like it was back in the 70s. Human development and housing is just pushed out in all directions around here. And a lot of the reports and the things that I investigated back in the 70s and 80s are all subdivisions now. So I don't get out. And I'm getting older, and and I can't take cold weather like I used to. I can't take hot weather like I used to. I work the weekends, so I keep in the loop from all my friends out there and turning into talk shows and stuff like that.
Do you go on have you gone on any expeditions lately to any sighting locations?
The last thing that I went out was with Mike Frizzell. We went out to Indiana to investigate the treetop boulders out there in central Indiana. I don't know if you've heard of that or not, but that's where these huge boulders are way up in trees, and it's still a phenomenon how they got there. So I went out with Mike and another member of the Enigma Project. We went out there and took pictures and checked it out ourselves. That's the last time I was actually out in the field. That's been about 2 years ago.
Okay, right. I guess that's all I got. That's all I got to say for questions. Thanks, Ron, for answering them. And Billy, have a great show. You too, DB, and I hope other people call.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
All right, and we've got one more caller here on area code 662. You're on the air with Sasquatch Watch Radio.
Well, I had to call in, the traditional way because they were breaking up real bad with the click to talk. So,
how you doing, Henry?
Yeah, I'm doing fine, Billy. And DB and Ron.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going fine. Wanted to ask Ron. There are some Indian mounds in northeastern Ohio where is anybody getting real bad breakup or real bad echo?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you guys will
Ron, I think
I'll fix
I'm
this
sorry?
phone. Okay, hang on a minute. I'll fix this phone here.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Henry will give us a song. Take it away, Henry.
Basically, what I wanted to ask Ron is, have he heard of any, giant bones being found in northeast Ohio? I believe I've heard of that, where giant bones have been found in the Indian mounds up in northeast Ohio.
Shoot, I've read about that, but those are like 19th century reports, and I don't think I've seen where anybody's ever been able to locate those bones in the modern era. So that would be the problem. They talk about these giant bones from the 1800s and the 1700s and the 1800s, but here in the 20th and 21st century, we don't see the bones that they talked about. So we're not sure that they ever actually saw them. But maybe they did. They saw them and they took them out of the ground and then they did something with them. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there's at least one researcher I know of in Mississippi who, thinks there may be a correlation between the Indian mounds and the Sasquatch. He's found some circumstantial evidence regarding a possibility of a correlation between Indian mounds and Sasquatch.
It's interesting. I have seen some of those paper articles, and I've always found them to be, pretty intriguing. But yeah, Ron, you're right. I have not seen anything recent. I think everything was based quite some time ago. So, all right. Is that all you had, Henry?
Yeah, that's pretty much all I had.
All right.
Just wanted to say, great show tonight, and I'll get off the line. Let somebody else give somebody else a shot.
All right. Thanks for calling in, Henry.
Bye.
Well, Henry was saying, you guys hear me now?
Yeah, I hear you.
Like Henry was saying, yeah, in my publication, the Ohio Valley Hominids, I touched on that a little bit, the Indian mounds in Ohio and the large skeletons found. Also in Kentucky, there were small skeletons found. So there is some interesting history there. And like DB brought it up before about, or you guys were bringing it up before about correlations between other phenomena. I've always checked that out. Anytime I've had a Bigfoot report or a UFO report, anything like that, I always try to find out if there's anything else strange happening in the area. And a lot of times you do find something, like the 77 Eaton, Ohio case. We found some interesting Indian legends in the same area. We found some animal mutilations and that kind of thing, too. Now, I never ever really considered the connection between, but it's always good for the investigator to note those things, to keep it, noted in their logs about other unusual activity, because it may come up another time. It's very interesting to note that, I think. Oh, like I said, I don't see the connection, but it's always good to note something like that.
Oh yeah, I agree. I mean, you wouldn't be, doing your job if you wasn't taking note of everything that's taking place in that area. So yeah, I agree with that. Has there been any questions in the chat yet, there, Mr. DB?
Well, the only question that I've come across is it must refer to what you guys were talking about when I was reading the chat to catch back up. Ironsides wants to know, what town in Indiana were you talking about when you mentioned town in Indiana?
What, the treetop boulders? Oh,
yeah.
It's the way to the University of Indiana. I'm not at the computer now because my wife's out there watching Camp Stars on TV, so I don't have that.
Okay.
If you would go to my website and get my email address, I can forward you the pictures we took and some of the more information about it. But
I saw something in the news a couple of years ago about boulders in the treetop. Did that come from your photographs? That news report that I saw? Or is that a second?
Either me or Mike Frizzell, one of the two, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, if you go to just do a search for Creature Chronicles, and my website comes up, and you'll see Contact Us. It has my email, and if anybody else out there is interested, I can forward the information to them. It's kind of hard for me to be in here in my radio room and not out to the computer to be able to instantly check this stuff. When you get old like me, the ears kind of blend together, and the reports kind of blend together. But yeah, I'm more than glad to, anybody wants any information on it, I'm more than gladly email it to them. It's one of the things that we used to do back in the 70s before computers came out. We had the internet. Everything was done by hand correspondence.
Right.
And
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. When everybody shared information, and, I don't say that doesn't go on now, but we have a little bit more. Some individuals, some organizations out there won't share like we used to do. And, of course, there's some that are. Things never change. We still have a lot of problems in this field of study, and that happens to be one of them.
Gotta agree with you there.
I like to see more of a cooperation. So, they've always had this problem with UFO research and psychic phenomena. So it's not, it's just not Bigfoot research. Any kind of paranormal field, organizations, individuals, and stuff have always had a hard problem working together.
Right.
And somebody brought up an interesting point that we should treat these subjects like they do with a national fingerprint or a national DNA database, where it's not just one group hoarding all the information or keeping all the information to them, where it's something what everybody that can get into it and check out their databases and the information they can use for their own research. That way, all the individual egos and the groups and stuff don't have to hassle over with each other about that. I think maybe that's one way we should go.
All right. Very interesting. Let me let me just repeat this phone number again for those who, because I've started to realize that not everybody is in the chat room, and some people listen to the show without opening up the chat. So for all those folks out there in the chat room and those who may not be in the chat room, the phone number to call in and ask Ron questions is 347-237-5070. It's 347-237-5070. Or if you're the shy type and you don't want your voice on the radio and you have Yahoo Instant Messenger, you can always instant message me at Sasquatch Watch Radio. All right. Any more questions, DB?
I have not run across any.
Okay.
So we may just have to start free-form jazzing now.
All right.
I did want to say something. You were talking about how people don't share, and that's a topic that has come up several times on this show. And I've been holding back something. I think I'm about to let it out. I say it like that, like it's going to be a big deal. First of all, I won't mention what organization it was, but there was an organization that advertises their own willingness to share their data with other researchers, and I contacted them. What I wanted was some information about whether any of their the data they gathered might help me to interpret the infrasound thing, right? So I contacted them for that, and I said, well, look, we can't share with you because you're an individual researcher. We can only share with researchers that are in an organization. And I said, well, I am in the Sasquatch Watch of Virginia. But see, that wasn't good enough for them either. They actually, when I mentioned that, they stopped writing back to me because I had sort of like undercut their argument for not sharing information with me. So what they were doing was they were getting the benefit of having set on their website that we will share information with anybody. But when push came to shove, they didn't really share any information. So it really is a problem out there, even with people who, sound like they want to share it. They don't really want to share it.
Well, in 1980, there was a couple of cases up in north central Ohio, and we were very interested in going to check it out. So I contacted this organization. I think their name was the Mammal Research Group, I believe. When I contacted them, she told me that she spitted out some kind of saying. I forgot what it was. Basically, she was telling me, this is our case. We don't want nobody near it, and don't come around. And I thought, wow, man, cool. If that's what you want to be about it. All I'm interested in is what information you guys have gathered. But like I said, that's not an old phenomena. That's not a new phenomena. It's been going on as long as I've been involved with this study. That there are certain groups out there that will not do that. But the one individual, I know Daniel Perez talked very highly of this guy on one of the talk shows last year. Pat Poling, one of the witnesses up there, there was a really sincere guy that was a real credible witnesses. And one thing that I like about some of these real credible witnesses is people who've never heard about Bigfoot and have described, to the T of what they saw. It sounded so familiar with all the other reports. 1980, incidentally, was another big flap year in this country. And back in 2000, there was an individual up in Michigan. Some guy was delivering milk early in the morning and this ape-like creature ran across the road. And he went to the police department. Was interviewed, and I've got the transcript of that interview. One of the girls who was in the BFRO the same time I was in there got this, and it's really a really interesting interview because this man had no idea about Bigfoot or anything like this. All he thought he saw was like a man-ape cross the road in front of him. He wanted to find out what it was. Also in 1980 in Maysville, Kentucky, a trucker coming up from Alabama hauling steel saw an white ape-like creature cross the road in front of him. He called the police department and was chatting on a CB and wanted to know if there was any circuses or zoos in the area because he thinks he saw a gorilla or something crossing the road in front of him.
Huh.
So, there's a lot of interesting things like that have happened that I've investigated over the years that I thought were kind of cool. That these are the kind of witnesses that I really like. They are honest, people, and they really believe that they saw something that resembled a Sasquatch. On the other hand, there's a lot of witnesses who actually believe they have seen Sasquatch, but they were truly mistaken in their observations, and it turned out to be a bear or something like that.
Right.
And I think, Billy, one of the reasons you asked me on this show, because I was telling you about German Shepherd that was killed during the Minerva case, and that seemed to pique your interest when I mentioned that in the chat room.
Yeah, tell us about that.
That was a very interesting case. That happened in Parrish Township up northeast Ohio, near Minerva, Ohio, 1978. Through July through September, up to 8 witnesses of this family saw numerous times 3 or 4 of these Sasquatch creatures together in an old abandoned pit mine down where they used to live. Mm-hmm. And they had 2 German Shepherds, okay? One of them was killed. It seemed like they found this dog dead with the collar unattached from the neck and laying to the side, and one German Shepherd had a broken neck and died. The other German Shepherd, whose name was Missy, had dug this big tunnel where she would go and hide. And this tunnel was bigger than the dog was, and after these encounters, this dog would go hide down in there, which I thought was very, very strange.
Huh.
I'd never, I've had dogs all my life, and I've never seen a dog behave like this one. It seemed like it was very schizophrenic, and even though they said it was a real friendly dog, when we went up there, it wouldn't let us anywhere near it. And there was a lot of other strange events around there. They thought that they told reporters that they thought maybe there was cougars or something in this pit with these Bigfoots. So the news media grabbed it, Bigfoot was seen along with cougars. Well, later on, after talking with some of the members of the press who had interviewed the Catons, who were the witnesses, thought that maybe these were juvenile Bigfoots, and this is the reason maybe they were walking on all fours, which seems more of a plausible explanation than the cougar thing to me anyway.
Right.
But this incident happened, like I said, from July till September, and we went up there on 2 occasions, talked to these people numerous times, individually, together, and we are convinced that they saw something that they perceived was Bigfoot. This creature even come up to their kitchen window and peered in while they were in there with their shotguns, and Mrs. Caton, who was the elderly lady, the grandmother and the mother of all the family there, wouldn't let them shoot at it because she felt like this creature looked more human than ape and that it wasn't there to harm them, which has happened in a lot of other cases too, where Bigfoot has peered in the windows at people. There was also the unusual stench, the ammonia sulfur-like stench that's been reported with a lot of incidents back in the 70s. I don't know if you hear too much about that or not. At least I'm not reading it. But back in the 70s and stuff, we had a lot of reports of these creatures giving off foul odors and stuff like this. The sheriff that came to investigate the case even smelled that it was left over. So I don't know, it's been suggested to me that maybe it's just because these creatures don't bathe or, they have a hard time keeping clean that they emit this foul odor. We get a lot of rotten egg smell and stuff like that. And down in the South, we had a lot of reports, so-called skunk apes, although I don't like that term. I'm with Diane Stocking on that. But you got a lot of, like the Noxie creature and stuff like that, which was kind of a play on words because of the noxious smell that the creature was giving off, and it was near the town of Noxie. So, like I said, I'm out of the loop on that a little bit. I don't know if that's now anymore or not. Maybe you guys can fill me in on that.
Right. Now, what did you say the name of the town was? Noxie?
Yeah.
Can we make a little side joke? We're talking about sulfur smell. It's kind of noxious, right?
Yeah, right.
I know, bad.
I know. Let's
good.
Okay. Phone number, guys. Call-in phone number 347-237-5070. Feel free to call in and ask Ron a question. Well, Ron, go ahead and tell us your website again so that people know where to find you.
Well, it's kind of a long URL, and it doesn't include a www. It's a Roadrunner URL. The best thing to do is just do a search, Google search for Creature Chronicles, and it'll come up.
Okay. All
And they, like I said, there's a lot of broken links on there. If somebody needs some information, feel free to email me. I just love sharing my information and passing it along for other people who are interested.
All right. Very good. Now, Ron, I don't know if you're the book writing type. Do you have any plans on writing a book or anything about anything that you've kind of witnessed over the years?
Well, I got a general outline and a synopsis, and but I haven't really got around to writing anything. I'm just too darn busy anymore with other activities.
Yeah.
Some of you might know I'm a ham radio operator. I'm really into that. And I'm semi-retired now. I drive a taxi cab, which I get a lot of interesting stories out of that. You can imagine.
You probably have had a few Bigfoot encounters from that, right?
Well, yeah. The most interesting one was I shared my interest in the Mothman phenomenon with somebody, and they told me about a place not far from there called Hillbilly Hot Dogs. It's a hot dog stand down there, West Virginia. And they told me all about this place, and I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I've been to Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I'm real skeptical of Mothman. I think they just saw some kind of bird, but I'm into the thing. I think it's really cool. I've been, like I said, been down there 4 times. Interviewed a lot of original witnesses back in the 70s that were involved in that.
Right.
And it's a real spooky place. It really is. You get back in that TNT area and that wildlife preserve back there at night, and it's just so spooky. And I just love places like that.
Oh yeah. I mean, West Virginia has some beautiful, wilderness areas that, particularly, I haven't done a lot up in northern West Virginia and up and around the Panhandle. Majority of what I've done is where my wife's family is from, which is down in south, the southern part of West Virginia, near Beckley and down in those areas. And I tell you, there is some out-of-the-way areas down there in the mountains. It is
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Exactly before. In fact, my sister, she's deceased now, had family up there, and I've been up there with them before.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful country.
Oh, it's beautiful.
I've been all over the country except maybe in the Texas area, and that area down there I've never been to, but I've been everywhere else in the country in this research. And
right.
The only thing I can say is I wish I had a lot of the money back that I spent into it. I'd probably be a rich man right now. It takes a lot of money to research Bigfoot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, we've got Jordan in the chat room. He wanted me to tell you, Ron, to watch. Apparently, Jordan Warner has made an episode on Mothman. Trying to read it. It says, Billy, tell Ron to watch my Mothman episode the last Friday of January of my crypto series, Cryptid Hunt. I think he has.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I think he does like on the internet. I think he's got a spot where he does a little documentary, and so I'll watch that too, Jordan. Heck.
Yeah, I've got a really cool print here for Bill Redmondson of the Mothman. It's a really cool print. I'm just pulling it out now. It was given to me a while back, and I just really love it. I got it up here in my radio room where I can kind of look over it a lot.
Right.
The thing is about the Mothman thing, there's so many exaggerated stories going on about that. And John Keel just really kind of put his own spin on it. You really can't, in my opinion, believe all that he said about it. For instance, the Mothman UFO connection really isn't there. The UFO report started in '67. The original Mothman report started in late '66. A lot of the UFO reports are misinterpretations of aircraft maneuvers, especially refueling tankers. I mean, it's in the newspaper clips. If you've got the Mothman Legend CD or the booklet that was put out, you'll see, if you go through a lot of newspaper clippings, there's a lot of misinterpretations on that. There was never any evidence to suggest that Mothman was around during the fall of Silver Bridge.
Right.
A lot of stuff was made up by the late Gray Barker, whom I knew personally. Great guy, but he was noted for really sensationalizing his writing, if you know what I mean.
Right.
But with the Foxwoods Monster, that's kind of exaggerated too. But that I still love that case.
Right.
Even though I'm skeptical on a lot of stuff, I still really kind of get into it. As long as I tell people, how I really feel about it, versus rather the enjoyment of reading it. Maybe not quite treating it as a conspiracy or science fiction, but that's kind of the way I do it.
Right.
The movie was pretty much way out of line of what really happened there, but I enjoyed the movie.
Right. I think DB's got some questions from the chat room. I think I saw him scroll by.
Yeah, I got a couple here from Reverend Strone, who always has good questions for us. The first one is... Yeah. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is, what evidence or story do you find the most compelling on the pro-Squatch side of the argument? And the second one is, let me read it here. Can Ron tell us some of his oddest Squatch stories, true or not? Those are the two from Reverend Strone.
He's talking about pro-Sasquatch reports. I guess you.
Yeah, like what makes you believe it's probably really out there? I mean, what evidence or story do you find the most compelling?
Probably the Roger Patterson, some of the older reports where you've had a lot of footprint tracks that went for quite some distance instead of just having one or two. Okay.
Right.
The ones from back in the 60s and stuff from Northern California, the Cascades, seem very credible to me. My problem is, and some of the cases out, I regress a little bit, some of the cases out in the east that I've wrote about, I've heard about, that get me, like maybe the Minerva case, and some of the cases down in the south. Those cases are very intriguing to me, the Fault Monster and stuff like that. The problem I'm having, though, is I don't think there are that many of these Bigfoot creatures roaming around like some would have us believe. It's in the thousands and stuff. I think maybe the number 4 in the hundreds, maybe even less than that. In my opinion, we're dealing with something that may be going extinct.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest concern is, with all these reports that we've had over the years, let's just take at the point where Roger Patterson filmed this alleged Bigfoot, okay? And the reason I say alleged is because I'm on the fence post on that film. How come we haven't gotten something similar since then? And we're talking, 40-something years, almost 50 years? We haven't got footage as good as that, and all these reports are out there on these databases. I mean, we got thousands of reports, but we still haven't got any real hard evidence. We have no body.
Right.
And that's my con on the whole thing, and that's what just really disturbs me, that we haven't got more evidence on it, more physical evidence.
Right. Well, I have heard, and I haven't confirmed this, but I have heard that there is a video floating around somewhere that apparently is very comparable, if not better, than the Patterson-Gimlin film.
Where's it at?
What?
Where's it at?
I don't know. I've heard that, and I'm waiting.
Don't just keep it like that, man. Where did you hear
that? No,
that?
I'm serious. I overheard a conversation, and it has something to do with Dr. Bindernagel.
Uh-huh.
So
we're going to have to get to the bottom of this.
He's a good guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll have to find out.
I mean, I'm just concerned that one hasn't been hit by an automobile, a truck, or a train, or a body hasn't showed up somewhere. And I realize, we're talking a lot of vast areas, and talk about the Cascades. I've been through there. I know, in the Rocky Mountains and even Appalachian Mountains. A lot of people out west don't realize it. The Appalachian Mountains, there's a lot of vast area out there. I realize this, but still, we're talking almost 50 years. So I'm just a little concerned why we haven't gotten the body yet.
All right. All right, everybody says I'm cruel. I swear, people, that's all I know. There ain't no big secret or anything. That's all I know. It was just something I overheard, so I don't know.
This is stuff I've heard for 30, 40 years, though, Billy, and, I've heard a lot of it, and I just really patiently waiting for some kind of physical evidence like a body to come up. And I sure hope it happens to prove me wrong.
Oh, I would love it to happen. I mean, DB wouldn't. DB wants it to stay a mystery.
No. Well, even a really good film wouldn't prove that it wasn't still a mystery. But I would love for a good film to show up.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, you're right. Absolutely right. It would not prove it, but it would at least show me and some other individuals I know that there's a greater possibility that it will be discovered.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got, I know a lot of people, have a lot of friends who's been in this phenomenon and done gone and got out of the field who feel the same way I do.
Right.
But I try to keep in the loop, like I said. I'm not a guy that will take strange sounds in the woods, strange eye shine, wood on wood, rocks being thrown at me. I don't take that as evidence. Now, I don't belittle anybody who says that's happened to and they're interested in finding out. But for me, it's always been looking for tracks, or talking to witnesses, stuff like that. Because the one thing that keeps me involved in this is the number of credible witnesses that I've talked to and other people I've talked to and I've recorded and read that keep me still interested in this subject.
All right.
To the people who think that twisted trees and limbs and stuff like that, maybe Bigfoot doing it, that's cool and everything, but what I would suggest is you get a hold of your friendly neighborhood wildlife biologist, grab you a couple of books on botany and trees and do a little research and find out other things that can cause this to happen. Now, once you eliminate all them, then, yeah, maybe you could say, well, this wasn't a case of disease, this wasn't a case of weather or something like this. Maybe it's a case of some animal doing it. Cool, I'll buy into it, but you need to eliminate those possibilities first. The number one rule that I was always taught through the UFO groups when I got into this, from UFON, APRO, and that was you were to eliminate all known possibilities before listing it as an unknown. It's the basic Sherlock Holmes scenario.
All right.
Whenever you've eliminated everything else, then you've got an unknown. Another thing is apparent sincerity of the witness is not necessarily guaranteed truthfulness. That's another thing you got to remember. I know it's really hard to think that way, that people would lie and make up things, but they do. A lot of people do. And it's not always for money.
All right.
Yeah, we actually learned that in our group, that will happen.
I'm not afraid to admit that Ray Wallace had me duped. I had no idea who Ray Wallace was when I met him back in 1980. Had no clue at all because none of the John Green or any of him, nobody, only John Napier was the only one to ever mention a tidbit about who Ray Wallace was. When I saw his film, I thought, wow, maybe we got something here. We brought it back here. He made a copy of it for us. We brought it back here and analyzed it. It was only when we brought it back here and really looked at it that you could see a human-looking hand coming out of the fursuit. So, and his Bigfoot rocks. I mean, Ray was a great guy. He's funny. He's entertaining. And he just loved to tell a good yarn. And if I'd have known this ahead of time, I wouldn't have made a mistake of writing my publication about Ray Wallace and his alleged film. Okay. I got hooked on an alien body photo by a guy by the name of Willard McIntyre. A bunch of us did. And it seems silly, I think. How did I ever get thinking this was real? But it happened to me. I took that negative and I turned it into a positive. I thought, well, this ain't going to happen to me no more. I'm going to research this stuff, and I'm going to take it on myself. I'm not going to listen to what anybody has to say. I'm going to check it out myself and see what conclusions I come with.
All right.
That's why I always suggest if somebody says, well, how do I get started in this field? What do? Dig up a good cold case and go reinvestigate it. There's nothing wrong with doing that. Don't listen to what any author, anybody tells you about a particular case. Check it out yourself. Because it's human nature. We all do it. We're all going to put our own spin and our own personal theories into that. And some of the truth might get twisted around. I've seen it happen. It still happens today. Right. I don't want to give any name callings or any authors or stuff like that, but I've seen my stuff get turned around into something that wasn't.
Right. Yeah, that's some very good advice, Ron. I mean, and you're right. There are, what you were talking about earlier, diseases and stuff that trees can get, which will cause the growth pattern of a limb or whatever to change and kind of look like a twist. I have seen it. If you look at it, you can actually tell that there was something there, whether it be an insect or whatever, that caused that thing to do that. And so I do know it happens.
And
it's those fresh breaks with the twist that aren't growth.
Absolutely. And an animal sure could have done it. That's why all I'm saying is eliminate that possibility first before you go and say, hey, this thing is kind of weird,
Right.
Maybe a Bigfoot was involved with it. Always look for tracks in the area.
Right.
And here's something I don't hear enough. Maybe people are doing it, no disrespect to anybody, but look for fingerprints. Good magnifying glass will show you something,
Right.
See, maybe you find some kind of latent print, all you got to do is lift it up with Scotch tape. The trouble is, if you want to get involved in having something forensically tested, boy, that costs you a lot of money.
That's not cheap.
And law enforcement won't do it for you. Now, we've had correspondence with the FBI. I know Peter Byrne, years ago, tried to get the FBI to analyze some hair samples. I have all that documentation. Jody Cook was able to retrieve it through the FOIA, Freedom of Information Act. I have a lot of that information. But to get, prints chased down and stuff like that, that costs you a lot of money. We don't have that kind of money. Yeah. It takes a lot, like I said, it takes a lot of money to investigate Bigfoot if you really want to do a thorough investigation.
Well, I don't know, Ron. Apparently there's a lot of people that think that our wallets are pretty fat. I saw a comment on one of the Yahoo groups today that said the whole reason that we all get involved in this is because we get fat wallets. And so I think y'all are holding out on some kind of secret on me or something.
Yeah, where's my money?
I've done radio shows where people call in, high school graduates and stuff, said, this sounds like a neat field of study for a job. How do I go about doing this? And I said, wait a minute, this isn't a job, This is a passion. I said, it's like a hobby to us, It's not a job. We spend our own money on it and everything. And it just kind of struck me off that they thought there was such a profession as a Bigfoot hunter out there that got paid.
Well, we don't know who that is, TV, but anyway.
I just wanted to, tell you, I'm getting a little bit of these reports. I thought another interesting case that I did was in Indiana, Rising Sun, Indiana, on the other side of the Ohio border in 77 too. Was this couple was chased by a large hairy creature 2 nights in a row with their baby in the car. They pulled up to their trailer and this thing banged up against their car. And we went to talk to them. There actually was a dent on this car, and we scrutinized this dentist car, and there was no anything metal that resembled that they hit something else. It didn't resemble. We couldn't find any metallic fragments or anything that came from a tree or anything like that. It was just a clean dent, and I've never really seen anything like that before. Usually you can see paint or something, if they hit a sign or a pole or something will scrape off.
Right.
But this is, those cops over there and those Ohio County Sheriff's Department, they just made us so mad. They talked about these kids just out playing around and out drinking and stuff like this, and they weren't. They were real serious, and they were scared. They had their baby with them. They thought this thing was going to harm their baby.
Right.
We didn't find any other kind of physical evidence, unfortunately, though.
That's the first time I've heard that one.
Oh, if you look, I think it's in Bigfoot Casebook. If you go through there, I think a lot of my reports are in there.
Cool.
But,
well, Ron, we're down to a minute, and I personally want to thank you. I'm sure DB would like to thank you too for agreeing to come on the show.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I really enjoyed myself.
Oh, we enjoyed it as well. And hopefully you'll come back again. If I'm sure we'll get around to you again, and you'll probably have some more stories for us.
Well, next time we talk, I'll get into my real passion is the sociological and psychological aspects of Bigfoot reports and how it affects towns and cities when you have flaps in them. Well, I mean cities, little small towns have flaps in them, and what occurs afterward.
Very
really
cool.
I would really be interested in that. Yeah, you got to come back and talk about that.
That'll be good.
I briefly touched on it on Don Keating's show, but it is really interesting what happens in the small communities when Bigfoot flaps occur afterwards. It's really a study in human behavior, if you want to be quite frank about it.
Well, thank you, Ron. Next week, everyone, we'll have Bill Brand on. That's next week. And, Ron, again, thank you for coming on the show, and we'll see everyone next Monday.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, Billy. Thank you.
Good night.